Basically, you were going to talk about the grid, right? So that's actually I'm interested in because.
Mike, can you tell us first what you knew about her before today? Like, what have you seen about her work?
About her? Who's her?
Her.
There's something about her.
Yeah. So Angelica, yes. So we have a mutual friend. I don't know. Can I say his name?
Yeah, of course.
You think so?
Yeah.
Matt Fulco.
Hey, Matt.
That I've known for many years. We have a really good relationship. We talk on Messenger almost every day.
I don't know how Matt has the time for it. He's always on Messenger. Yeah. He's very prolific.
I'm honored. I'm really happy. He always shares his articles with me.
Yes.
And I feel really honored because I don't think he does that with too many people, you know? Just from convenience stance, you know, like you can only forward to like 9 people or something, you know? So anyways, I'm one of them. I'm very honored. And so he's very active on LinkedIn as well.
Yes.
And that's how I came to find you. Because I saw Matt Fulco he made a comment, you know, one day, and then so I was like, oh wow, I mean I looked at the article, like it was yours, and I found it was very interesting, and I think today it's really rare to find, you know, good journalists. It's so rare, you know, like. And I invite everybody to follow our work because
follow me on LinkedIn.
It's really different from the mainstream stuff, you know, like you really go into the deep stuff, the details, and maybe if it's not even the details, it's like stuff that matters, you know, and I think today the media really, they go to what the people will like, you know, the clouds, like what will generate clicks, views, emotions, but you know, that's not their role. I don't think, and I'm not even interested in that, you know. I want to know, I want to go to the bottom of things, to know, for example, does Taiwan have enough nuclear energy to power, you know, the grid? You know, I want to know stuff like that. I want to know stuff like that. How many nuclear centrals do they have? How do they generate their electricity? Not only Taiwan, every country in the world. I'm interested in stuff like that, you know, and with you, and of course, you know, living in China, having this special relationship with Taiwan, I'm obviously more interested in Taiwan than I am about Peru, although I love Peru, but you know, I have no link with Peru, so you know, yes, it was really a great thing to find out.
Well, thank you. That was so nice. I didn't expect that, but I'm really happy to hear it.
He was really excited when I
Very
said,
nice.
and when I said Angelica, he was just like, wait, is that who I think it is? And I was
Yeah.
like, maybe
I didn't know. I was like, wait, because you know I follow your newsletters.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And then when he said you were coming, I was like, wow, are you serious? No way. And this is only my second day back in Taiwan, you know, for my
But apparently
holidays.
you weren't coming. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I had a little bit of a schedule malfunction. Less said about that, the better.
She's living in U.S. time, so North America. Jason was saying that he was some of the viewers are complaining that they were having blackout, but he says he's never seen any.
Well, no. This girl I know in Xinzhuang said like, because I was like telling her about, you know, what I knew about what's going on, and she's just like, okay, I don't care about whether this election was rigged or not. I care about electricity. And I was like, what do you mean electricity? And she's like, you know how hot it is? And this during the summer, right? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty hot. And then she's like, yeah, I get blackouts. I cannot do things when the electricity goes out, like because the internet goes out with it. And then I'm like, you get blackouts? So I was just like wondering, like, how common is this all over Taiwan? Because I've never seen a blackout in where I live before. Yeah.
because that is why people joke this is the Taipei city is the sky dragon country of but anyway, okay, I also live outside of Taipei and I live in Taoyuan. So I think last year I had like at least one pretty serious one of like, but it is not uncommon, but it kind of depends on jurisdiction, because if you actually look carefully at your Taipower sort of bill, they will actually tell you what sort of jurisdiction you are in. There are some that takes priority over other when the grid is unstable, because for example, hospital obviously take very high priority. You can't have hospital blackout, and then or like key transportation. Oh, so you live near a hospital, so obviously that is. Or if you live near like a train station or some sort of like key infrastructure, then you will be very unlikely to experience power issues. But I think we'll default to Angelica a little bit soon, but I think what my understanding is that a lot of the issues that's primary burden has been on the industrial side of things.
Absolutely.
Which is that Taipower will call you if you're a big factory that's driving a big whatever, and they'll tell you that, hey, can you not work today, or can you not turn on your thing today, or turn on at midnight or something, and that's kind of how they've been juggling the game. And there's also some really dubious accounting between like Taipower and like the main power like petroleum importer. So it's basically the industrial side has been the main thing, especially if you're If you're TSMC, you should be fine because you're TSMC.
Yes, that's right.
But
the hospital electricity will go out before TSMC.
Yes, but if you're the old traditional operating like a steel mill or some sort of other traditional heavy industry, you are in a lot of trouble, because I had like worked briefly for like a traditional company for like a year. Like,
yeah.
But anyway, that's my experience. So, but we'll default to the expert on this.
Well, thank you, Richard. I've been covering energy issues in Taiwan for 2 years now. And in that time, there's been 3 island-wide rolling blackouts. And I think that's actually pretty poor. There was one this year and 2 last year, I believe.
There's also a big one in like 2018.
Yes, that was before my time. So in fact, there's island-wide rolling blackouts have been a semi-regular occurrence. I think it's way too close for comfort for a country that's as industrialized and dependent on the grid as we are. I think each one of those blackouts should have been cause for top to bottom systemic root cause analysis for exactly what went wrong. But in each of those, in the aftermath of each of those blackouts, you just have, the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Taipower bowing and apologizing, and then blaming some low-level employee for accidentally tripping a breaker. But the thing is, in any in proper electrical system, you're not supposed to be dependent on every single person on that system not to mess up. So in fact, if one user operator error can incapacitate your grid for hours, cause rolling blackouts for hours, then there's something very wrong with your system.
Do you know how long were the blackouts?
They were for hours, and the electricity would come on and off again.
Not stable.
No, like half an hour at a time, because there just wouldn't be enough. Let's say the operator error caused a big coal plant to get offline. There's not enough electricity in the system to give to everyone. So what they do is they take turns so that everybody can at least have some power every half hour. But I think that's pretty poor performance, but I totally agree with Richard that the people who are really suffering are the industrial users, and that's very negative for Taiwan, because we do have, for a country of our GDP per capita, pretty high share of industrial, and so it's really impacting. are manufacturers. And I hear a lot about, let's say I'm a small factory owner, and they say, oh, your coal burning boiler is so dirty. You should switch to electrical boiler. Okay, you switch to electrical boiler, and now you can't run it because there's not enough power. It's really quite irresponsible how the grid in Taiwan isn't properly provided for. I think we are already in a power crunch, and it's only going to get worse in the coming years, and the ruling party don't seem to have any appetite for dealing with it in a responsible
So what
way.
is the energy mix in Taiwan?
The energy mix right now, we have
So nuclear?
About 10%.
nuclear is 10%.
I think it was more. Okay.
No,
They
no.
turned off one of the oldest.
And
nuclear-
the natural gas is about 40 now, right?
I think so. I think nuclear at the peak was
Wow.
closer to 15. But,
Okay.
but now it's more like 10.
So gas is 40.
Gas
Yeah,
is 40.
gas is 40.
And where does it come
Coal,
from?
well,
everywhere. but-
everywhere.
but coal is the other 40.
Qatar, Australia,
Russia.
Russia, anywhere but the United States, actually. We don't
Yeah,
have
well,
any
partly
gas,
that's. I
yeah.
think partly that's like a geographic issue
it's
because
really far,
they're shipping out from the Gulf and just doesn't make sense to go.
Yeah,
to the other
yeah.
side.
So basically, we have too much liquefied natural gas, and we have too much coal. Only
So coal,
only
what
6%
is
is
the percent?
renewables.
Probably 40.
Around 40, yeah, around 40 also. And then renewables is around 6%. That's solar and
What
wind.
about hydro? Because there's a
It's like
huge
2%.
dam.
It's
which is
only
one.
around
Very
2%.
small.
Yeah,
It's
it's
very
just
small.
one.
It's only around
because-
2%. We're very lucky in that we have pumped hydro, which is really nice for balancing.
Yeah, but it's not a huge
But it's not a
balance, right?
It's
not-
2 gigawatts. It's
Oh,
not.
okay, it's not nothing,
Yeah.
but-
It's not nothing.
Because Taiwan has like very weird rivers of like there isn't actually that many places you can dam
Yeah.
properly, and then they're all used up anyway, and then also you can't because I think a lot of people outside of Taiwan don't understand that despite being like a almost tropical island, the water is actually very tight here. So like if it doesn't rain for 3 months, it's kind of already borderline emergency. So
Yeah,
you
can't
can't.
handle the hydro.
So you can't like just let the hydro run at will, right? It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, of course.
And so that is also like coal. It should be noted that especially a lot of people don't know that Taiwan used to be a major coal producer, but it was like in the Chiang Kai-shek era. It's
Yeah.
like, but the last one was already closed in 2000. But that was why it was like a very big coal base because. Especially in the Chiang Kai-shek era, it was a very big coal producer. We were even exporting coal at that point until like the oil price really crashed in the like later 70s or something, and then obviously Taiwan's not the most reasonable place to mine coal, and geologically it's very unstable. It's not very safe, and also as people got wealthier, it's very difficult to convince people to go operate coal mine, the Coral Round coal mine. So, but that's why the legacy of why there's a lot of coal, and also coal is easier to procure. But I think Jason talked about, okay, is pollution actually quite bad in Taichung? The answer is yes. The answer is definitely yes.
Yes.
Because especially if you drive on number 3, the highway, you can see the super huge
Factories.
no, the first is the electricity generating power plant, and because the plant is there, and also the port and LNG port is all there, so by naturally all the heavy industry will also in the central part of Taiwan will also be around those areas, like either in Taichung or the Zhanghua region area of like Mailiao, of like they're in that same very small within 100-kilometer band, so it's all on the coast. And so the pollution can get very bad over there. And that's kind of the debate in Taichung, especially of why like the mayor in Taichung, she's really running on that. And it's been a kind of a mess because but I don't love her politics, but I think but anyway, that is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, so Taiwan is going to face a power crunch in the coming years, and I think the only reasonable solution is to extend the life of the existing nuclear power plants and probably switch on the fourth nuclear power plant at Longmen. It'll take a couple of years, but just in time. And then we will have 20% nuclear, and that will be a pretty reasonable base for us to then add renewables on top of, so that we can reduce the coal. I don't even want us to reduce the gas. Reducing the coal, though, is a quality of life issue. And
Yeah,
as well
well,
as
Why does it take 2 years to turn on number 4?
Because they
It
already
just does,
sold
it just
all,
does.
they also sold all the
I think
the
just the
fuel. 2
testing,
years is okay,
just
it's
the-
not-
testing.
It's not unreasonable.
Yeah, I think it'll take 2 years to sort of
And get the staff all back up
So
to-
I think it's actually fine.
You know, we have the same problem in France.
Yeah.
We have the same problem, the nuclear. You know, France was the only country in the world with 80%.
Yeah, I
Of
know
our
the
energy
Mesmer
mix.
plan. So
But
formidable. Yeah.
They wanted to stop that for political reasons, and now they are coming back to nuclear because it's the cleanest.
Yes.
It's the cleanest energy, and of course they say, you know, the anti-nuclear say that it's dangerous, which you know is true. But we never had any accidents. You know, in 60 years plus, 0 accidents. And actually, you know what happened in Fukushima? They were supposed to build a wall that was supposed to be a certain height, and it's so weird because this is so not Japanese. To, you know, the error margin was like very high. It was, the percentage was really high, and like, how can you not like do it like 10 meters? They say, okay, 7 meters is enough. No, it's not enough. Even if it's 1%. 1% chance is enormous. Imagine if you're driving a car and you have a 1% chance for your brakes to break. You know, from here, if you drive from here to Taipei 101, you will use your brakes more than 100 times. So you are guaranteed to have an accident. You know, 1% is huge, and it happened.
Which plant was shut down? Which plant was shut down?
The first
The
one.
first one and the first unit of the second one.
The first unit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
each plant, one,
Has
two,
more than
three,
one
they have 2 reactors
Yeah.
each. But here's the interesting thing, huh? There's also something I heard. This is a really deep cut. I'm gonna end after this. But actually, none of the nuclear power reactors in Taiwan have been decommissioned. The reason is because they were shut down early because the fuel pools were full. The wet storage was full. For political reasons, we never licensed the dry storage. This means the last batch of fuel rods all stayed within the reactor core. This means you cannot decommission the reactors. You have to keep them running because the last batch of fuel is still inside.
Oh, okay.
So this means that they're put through the mint condition, and all of those reactors in Taiwan are like water reactors, and they have gone on for 20, 40-year extensions in the U.S. So we could turn them all back on if we wanted to and run them for another 40 years.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep. Also, well, since our previous topic was more national security, it should be noted that coal is a lot more helpful in national security logic.
Yeah,
Than,
when it comes to national
gas.
security,
The national
LNG is
gas,
kind of the worst.
Yeah,
we
and
can
also
only hold
coal
it
is
now for like
more
2 weeks.
coal is more like flexible in terms of the boiler could theoretically be changed to something else a lot easier than like LNG setup in theory. But so there is that. So like, and it also kind of depends. But anyway, that's a bit different, deeper cut.
Okay, let's just close it out by saying. I was about to say, hey DPP, you know, you're the party I support. What is going on with your energy policy? It's horrible. Okay, I'll stop now.
No, my friend is a chairman of the China Shipbuilding Company, and he says he's very pan blue, and he's actually supported some of my MT election fraud campaign back in 2007. And he told me that the DPP policy of importing more coal into Taiwan is helping him because he's in the shipping business, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, so you just care about your business. You don't care about like our health, with all this coal burning. And he's like, well, if it's good, it's good. And I was like,
I would say that my business has generally run better under when the DPP, although there's no direct correlation of politics, but sort of a feng shui logic of like whenever DPP is in power, better things have happened to us. It's like, but that's a different topic altogether. Yeah.
Could it be that because the energy thing, the energy protests in 2014 came right after Sunflower, and that was sort of like the DPP momentum was rising, so they did it back to back, and then Ling Yi show came out, right? Yeah. And so is it because they don't want to go back on that, or like what do you think's going on?
I guess that one is that, two is that because the state companies control most of the import of energy. So, and the government, whoever's in power, they can name the chairmen and all the major chair of the boards to almost all of the state-owned companies. So there is probably some dubious logic of sort of pork barreling in there, but that's hard to prove. But it's kind of likely because nuclear has been kind of poor for generally doesn't have a lot of lobbying and longer supply chain of things involved into where you could.
I think you're overcomplicating things.
Yeah,
the DPP are just anti-nuclear because it's in their political.
Yeah, because they were formed in the late '80s, just right after Chernobyl.
Same year as Chernobyl.
Yeah,
actually.
so that's kind of their one of their core logic, and they just can't step back.
Is it their ideology because they just want to be like anti-KMT and like KMT is like pro-nuclear and so they're anti-nuclear,
I don't know. It's kind of a mix.
You have to understand when Chernobyl happened, it was scary. People didn't really understand it, and so I can understand if your party was formed then and it was written into your party charter, maybe that does affect you. But I also think that at some point they just need to
actually examine the science.
Here's the thing that really surprised me. Tsai Ing-wen, our president, at one point she was actually pro-nuclear.
Well, she was also working for the KMT government. Because
this was actually under the Chen Shui-bian administration, and
she was her position? I forgot.
She was vice premier under the Abian
at the end of the Chen Shui-bian.
So when I went to visit Longmen with plant manager Wang, he recalled he was acting manager at the time, and she came to his plant and said, "What you're doing is enormously important for Taiwan. This plant must be complete. You tell me what you need, and I will get it for you." And he says, "Well, we need some Taiwan employees, we need some foreign laborers, and we need gravel. We need a lot of gravel." And then the very next day, somebody got in touch and said, "Hey, I'm here to get you what you need." So at that point, she was very insistent that this plant is what Taiwan needs, is essential for Taiwan's future. And then only for her, once she was elected, she totally changed her tune and she denigrated the fourth nuclear power plant as a scary
It's
vehicle.
politicking.
I know, it's really disappointing because I'm such a fan of the president.
The general timeline was that when Chen Shui-bian was elected, the fourth was always kind of controversial. The DP was always theoretically against it. So there was a lot of protests even when they were starting to build in the late Li Denghui era. Mm-hmm. And when Chen Shui-bian got on, one of the first things, really big controversies he had was he was talking to Lian Zhan, the company said, they say, okay, we agree to not close down this. And then as soon as Lian Zhan walked out, literally as he was walking, he announced, no, we're closing it. And then this started to get him into a lot of trouble with GE and the Americans and obviously everything. And then I think halfway through his term, second term or something, somewhere in the middle of his term, basically the Americans sort of forced him to go back on that and say, okay, whatever, let's rebuild and let's restart, and then it kept going until the Manchu era when it was almost done, and then that whole fiasco happened, and so it is kind of in suspension right now.
Okay, so like if you had it your way, they would restart the fourth plant like right now and actually get it going in 2 years or something.
Oh yes.
Okay, don't wait until the next administration.
But that's impossible because Thai is not going to do it. Of course, if I were somehow magically in charge, then I would say get the life extension going and do a thorough check of everything and just make sure the fourth MPP is turned on in a very safe manner, and then maybe take a look at MPP 1 and the first reactor of MPP 2, see if there's any chance of bringing them back. And the thing is, nuclear power plants aren't actually that complicated. They're big boiling pots of water with
fancy water boilers.
Exactly.
They're very.
Anyhow, we probably talked too much
I wrote
about
a
it.
research
Thank
paper
you.
on nuclear energy and I don't know anything about it.
Thank you for letting me rant on this much.
No, it's okay.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Got their project. Okay,
We've all
so
got our things.
you
If
want
no one else has like a few, did you know sort of like a Taiwan history, which some of it's relevant. Some
Okay,
of it's
well,
like,
what do you got?
Okay, did you know when Taiwan, after World War II, because all the Japanese left and all the land that theoretically the Japanese government or companies own, they went to like the Chinese government, like theoretically of that time, like the ROC government, and you know what sort of percentage of land that was, like relatively, like a ballpark of what you think it was? It was 70%, over 70% of the all land in Taiwan. So that kind of explains a lot of like why Chiang Kai-shek can survive in Taiwan, why there was land reform, why there was everything. But obviously how they got there is a darker, deeper topic that let's not go there. And okay, the second topic, on the eve of the war, the first Sino-Japanese war that Taiwan was later ceded to Japan over, there were two railways in all of China. One was near Beijing, so one was Beijing to Tianjin. You know what the second one was? It was Taipei to Keelung. So.
Well, the Japanese are very good at building infrastructure.
No.
Oh, no.
The Qing government already built it.
Oh, wow, no way.
So that was like literally the first
wow.
they built, because it was already okay. The third topic, which is relevant to Mike, did you know why the Qing what was the pivotal event that forced the Qing government to make Taiwan a province? It was actually a territory under Fujian.
Was it the Sino-French War?
Yes, it was the Sino-French
Because
War.
How did the Sino-French War?
I've been to that fort where they had a display in Dangshui where they were talking about how that war played out. I don't remember.
Yes,
but like,
because the Sino-French War was fought over Vietnam, right? Over control of Vietnam. But the French decided, because fighting in the forest in the border of Vietnam and China is very problematic. It doesn't give them a huge advantage relative to their ships. So they decided to use their navy to try to run around southeastern China to create havoc, and their target was to take over Taipei and Penghu. They did take over Penghu, but their attempt to take over Taipei ended pretty badly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they lost a lot of men, and it didn't just they took Keelung for a little bit, but they couldn't fight their way into Taipei, and that was kind of the key deciding moment. The Qing said, okay, we absolutely need to defend Taiwan. It's very critical, so we need to make it a province.
They made a province in 1887.
Yeah, but and the war was 1885 when it was fighting in Taiwan. So.
Well, that's a piece of history I did not know.
Yes, so that's kind of relevant to France as well. And the final one is that the reason why the Dutch was in Taiwan. Did you know why they were in Taiwan? Like, what's the key that they were in Taiwan for? It was to trade with Japan, because that was like the late Warring State and then into the early Edo period. So there was all these powers between them and the Portuguese and Spanish are trying to fight the trade into Japan. So that was why they established the fort in Tainan, and Japan and Spain established the fort in Tamsui. But actually they lost and they even fought a war to like raid into Macau and raid into Xiamen and all that stuff. But hilariously, the war was won by Chinese pirates, basically, which was basically Zheng Zhenggong's father, which is why Zheng Zhenggong ended up taking over Taiwan, which was because, and also it didn't help that Japan just closed the border, so there wasn't actually that much to fight for anymore. So the Dutch was losing interest in Taiwan anyway, and Zheng Zhenggong come with a pretty big army and big navy, and said, okay, let's just get up. And there was there was some back and forth later on between them and the Qing dynasty and all that stuff. And the Qing dynasty, at first, they wanted to ally with the Dutch to take back and let them take Taiwan and to take out Zheng Zhenggong, but anyway, the history played out differently. But there was all sorts of crazy things that happened between them.
Oh, okay. How about that? Then we learned.
Yes. Okay. So
very interesting, man.
Yeah,
Very interesting.